Number 10. The Jealous Husband and the Beauty Queen. A jealous husband choked his wife to death and then pretended to help a search party look for her in a bizarre attempt to rule himself out as the main suspect. This happened in Germany, with the murderer being a man known only as Patrick S., 27 years old. The prosecution in the case against him alleged that his marriage to Jennifer S. was strained because he had extreme jealousy issues and no self-control. Jennifer was the same age as him. She was a former beauty queen, and she had put up with his violent outbursts for quite a long time. But finally, Patrick had a violent outburst that Jennifer would never come back from. He murdered her with his bare hands on February 27th, then used her phone to text her sister, saying she was going for a walk along the local river. This was his grand plan. The fake text was supposed to convince everyone that she had gone for a walk along the river and then befallen some sort of tragedy. He even faked a search effort to try and cover his tracks. At the same time that they were searching for her by the river, Jennifer's body was discovered in some bushes across the city, just a few feet from their apartment. The husband was arrested the next day because the entire plan was nonsense. Number 9. Death by bikini. A woman had been killed due to a wardrobe malfunction at a pool party. Her boyfriend, a Brazilian man named Nicholas Maichon, got insanely jealous when she accidentally flashed partygoers by pulling down her bikini. He was so jealous that he beat her to death. This guy was so jealous that an accident, a complete mistake, compelled him to commit murder. To be honest, it wasn't even that big of a deal. His girlfriend, Ana Paula Coutinho, was moving into the water when her bikini accidentally came loose. As it loosened, she instantly revealed herself to other people at the party. This happened to the outskirts of Sao Paulo, with the victim being only 24 years old. Immediately after the accident flash had occurred, the suspect became violent. He accused her of doing it deliberately to show off to all the partygoers. This was not true, but instead the ravings of a jealous maniac. After he beat her to death, he told his friends that she drowned in the pool and that he needed to take her to the hospital. But when he showed up to the hospital with her dead body, he ditched and ran. Doctors were able to easily determine Anna's cause of death as blunt force trauma to the head. And in the end, Nicholas was labeled a monster, hunted down by the police, and will hopefully pay the price for his disturbing and ridiculous crime. Number 8. Another jealous husband. Yet another jealous husband has gotten in trouble for beating up his wife. This time, the event took place at a bus stop in Washington Heights, with the husband beating his wife to death with a crowbar. She wasn't beaten to death immediately, but rather beaten senseless. It wasn't until 4 days later, as she lay mutilated in New York Presbyterian Hospital, Columbia, that she passed away. Her name was Maria Kelly, 49 years old. It was her husband, 63-year-old Julio Aponte, who bashed her brains in at the bus stop at West 163rd Street and Fort Washington Avenue. It wasn't even late at night or under the cover of darkness, but at 7 o'clock in the morning in the early light of day. Witnesses saw the whole thing unfold. Julio began screaming at Kelly at the bus stop, with one person hearing him say, "How dare you cheat on me?" Just seconds later, he had the crowbar of both hands, and Kelly was on the ground bleeding. It may be important to note that they weren't actually waiting for the bus. According to the assistant district attorney, Julio was waiting for his wife outside the building where they lived. He was waiting there to confront her with the crowbar, and after he finished his business, he got on his motorcycle and drove off. But apparently, he had nowhere to go. Julio turned himself in shortly after the attack and has since been charged with murder. Number 7. The wrong name. Mark Branford was 49 years old when he stabbed Kaylee Dunning in the middle of the night as she was naked in their bed. That was right before he took out a crowbar and bashed her brains in. I don't know what it is about jealous boyfriends and crowbars, but they seem to go hand in hand. The reason? Well, the reason for the killing is pretty bizarre. Mark had just proposed, unaware that Kaylee was still texting her ex-boyfriend. But he found out about it pretty quickly. Even though she had agreed to marry him, she was sending affectionate messages to a man named Dean Druney the same night. She had also been seeing Dean while seeing Mark, making this a love triangle gone horribly wrong. Sending the text messages to another man might have been okay, but it's what happened next that pushed Mark over the edge. She accidentally called Mark Dean that same night. Being called the wrong name is what ultimately pushed Mark into a blind and murderous rage. As Kaylee lay in bed, thinking everything was perfectly fine, Mark took out a knife and jammed it into her. Then he beat her with the crowbar until she was dead. Have you ever accidentally called your partner by the wrong name? If so, what were the consequences? And on that note, do you think Mark Branford went a little too far with the knife and the crowbar? Let us know in the comments, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. Not in front of the baby. In Germany, a jealous boyfriend was thrown into a fit of rage in which he hacked his lover to death while their baby watched the whole thing. Sheikh, 28 years old, was with his partner, Tatiana, for 5 long years. But after 5 years, he started growing paranoid, accusing her of sleeping with other men. And here's where things are going to get uncomfortable. Sheikh arrived in Germany from Afghanistan as a refugee in 2013, then met Tatiana when she was only 15 years old. At the time, he was 23. They got married in an Islamic ceremony, though this wasn't technically official under German law. The pair had a baby together 8 months before the murder. Tatiana brought the infant with her to visit Sheikh at the snack bar they owned together. It was then that he asked if she was cheating on him. According to what he told the court, she then said yes, she was seeing quite a few other people. We don't know if this is true, but it's what he claims. The revelation apparently caused him to lose control of himself. He locked the door of the business and slashed her with a knife. But she didn't die immediately. Tatiana was able to stagger out of the snack bar and get back to her car, trying to protect her baby. But the killer caught up with her anyway and stabbed her 18 more times with a Japanese chef's knife. While he was stabbing, he screamed at people walking by in the street that she was a cheater and that she deserved it. He also screamed, "She's only a woman." But in the end, the defense didn't get him very far. He's now on trial for murder and will probably be in prison for life. Number 5. The wrong glance. In San Bernardino, a gang member has been arrested after shooting at 2 men and killing one of them, all because he was jealous about the way they leered at his girlfriend while in a liquor store. The gang member was 18 years old at the time of the incident, which went down on February 25th. It was early, not even 11 o'clock in the morning. The gang member pulled up beside 2 men, had a few words, and then began blasting at them with a gun. 41-year-old Clarence Wimbish was killed, while the other man got away with no injuries at all. The shooter's been identified as Gilbert Ruiz, since booked on suspicion of murder. According to the police, the motive for the shooting is jealousy. Number 4. Murder for hire. A cybercriminal operating on the dark web was advertising himself as a hitman when a young woman from Washington tried to hire him for his services. He wasn't actually a hitman though, and the woman's request was so terrifying that he reported her to the FBI. It was the Bureau's National Threat Operations Center that received an anonymous tip from an operator of a dark web service that offered contract killings. A prospective customer had transferred $5,000 in Bitcoin for a hit to be carried out around the Seattle area. The message said something along the lines of, "Just kill her ASAP. I don't care how. So long as she's dead. I would prefer if you shoot her in the head." The intended victim worked for a corporation in Bellevue. She had a 3-year-old son, and she picked her son up from school every day at about 5 o'clock. The only other request was that proof be sent when the job was finished. If you're confused about the dark web operation, the tipster informed federal agents that the website was actually just a Bitcoin scam. They didn't actually commit any murders. This guy was just a con artist. But this most recent attempt to hire a hitman disturbed his conscience. He sent a photograph to the FBI of the intended victim. The FBI was able to hash out who it was trying to have the hit done, and things spiraled from there. What we know now is that the hit was requested by the wife of a man who had been cheating on her with a young college student. The wife was so jealous that she wanted the college student taken care of. But so far, no charges have actually been made because the trial has been pushed back thanks to COVID-19. The FBI hasn't even released the names of those involved, only the details about the case. Number 3. Not invited to the party. A jealous boyfriend killed 6 people in Colorado because he wasn't invited to a birthday party. This guy was so mad that nobody invited him to the party that he crashed it and opened fire on the guests. The shooter has been identified as Teodoro Macias. He was in a relationship for about a year with a woman named Sandra Ibarra. But when Sandra had a birthday party thrown by her family and nobody invited her boyfriend, apparently for good reason, he became wild and unpredictable. In fact, Teodoro was already considered to be an irrationally jealous partner and extremely controlling. He wasn't invited to the party because Sandra's family didn't want him around. But he came around anyway. The party was taking place in a mobile home park in Colorado Springs. By the time police arrived on the scene, after getting calls of an active shooter, 6 people were dead and 1 was injured. The victims included Sandra and 5 of her close family relatives. Number 2. The Jealous Beautician. In Moscow, a jealous beautician dropped her friend's baby from a high-rise apartment 130 feet to the ground. This truly evil act earned the woman 17 years in jail. Her name is Daria Shavalkina, and she was jealous of another woman named Yaroslava Korolyova. Daria was jealous not because her friend was sleeping with her husband or anything, but because her friend had a better life. Yaroslava had a loving husband. She had a happy life at home, and everything was going just great for her. But Daria's life kind of sucked. She was so jealous that she went to the other woman's house, picked up her 2-month-old daughter, and tossed her out the window. It didn't seem to be planned. There was no rhyme or reason to it. It just kind of happened. If Daria thought her life sucked before, now she has to live the rest of her life as a baby killer for the next 17 years while she's locked up. Chances are she's not going to be treated overly well by her fellow inmates. And number 1, poison makeup. Janet Overton was planning to go whale watching with her son on January 24, 1988. But before they ever made it out of the driveway, Janet collapsed in front of her house in Dana Point, California. Her son, Eric, and her husband, Richard Overton, called 911. They then followed the ambulance to the hospital, where Janet died. It seemed like a freak accident until the coroner's office conducted the autopsy. They couldn't figure out the cause of death. It was an enormous mystery, and the police were getting suspicious. Investigators talked to Janet's friends. One of them said she had been complaining about unexplainable sores on her face. Her health had been deteriorating. Her health actually started to fall after she had been involved in an extramarital affair with a married assistant superintendent named Bill Dawson. 6 months after Janet's death was when the police finally caught a break. Richard Overton's ex-wife, Dorothy, came forward to tell the police that in the 1970s, she too developed a sudden illness after she asked Richard for a divorce. She found out that her beauty products had been laced with selenium, something fatal in large doses. But because she didn't die, she never pushed the issue. In the end, investigators were able to prove that Richard had been poisoning his wife's beauty products because he was jealous after the affair she was having. Richard had gotten a hold of cyanide, selenium, and other toxins to gradually poison his wife until she finally dropped dead in their driveway. He was ultimately arrested in 1991 and charged with a murder in the first degree, sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. What's the craziest case of jealousy that you've ever experienced? Let us know in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. Remember to hit subscribe if you liked what you saw, and come back soon for more. See you next time.